South African prison violence has once again taken over national headlines, this time following the shocking attack on Vasicate Matlala, widely known across the country as the mastermind behind multiple cash-in-transit heists. Lala was reportedly stabbed inside a Johannesburg correctional facility late last night, an incident that has sent shockwaves through both criminal networks and public conversation, exposing the brutal and dangerous reality that exists behind prison walls. Before going deeper into what happened, think about this for a moment. If you were sentenced to spend decades in a hostile environment, surrounded by enemies who might want you dead, what would your survival strategy be? For Matlala, navigating the ruthless world of South African prisons was like playing a deadly game of chess, where every move had to be calculated perfectly, because one mistake could cost him his life. Matlala's name is not just another entry in South Africa's criminal records. It is a legend, whispered about in both corporate boardrooms and dark back alleys. Born in tough townships where outsmarting authority was part of everyday life, Lola earned the nickname Oceat for his almost supernatural ability to escape capture. His reputation was built on precision, boldness, and a sharp strategic mind that transformed ordinary robberies into operations that looked more like military missions. By his mid-30s, Al had allegedly orchestrated more than 20 major cash-in-transit heists, accumulating wealth beyond what most South Africans could ever imagine, while leaving behind a trail of destroyed armored vehicles and traumatized security guards. Despite years of intense investigation and relentless pursuit by law enforcement, catching him was like trying to grab smoke with bare hands. When he was finally arrested and sent to prison, many believed his extraordinary run had finally come to an end. The attack reportedly took place around 11:30 p.m. in the CAC section of a Johannesburg prison. According to anonymous correctional officers, Lola was ambushed in a common area during what was supposed to be a supervised period. Witnesses claim that 3 inmates approached him carrying improvised weapons, sharpened pieces of metal that authorities are still trying to trace back to their source. The assault was fast, controlled, and clearly intentional, pointing toward a planned hit rather than a random act of violence. Lola suffered multiple stab wounds to his torso and upper body before guards managed to intervene using pepper spray and tactical batons. He was first treated in the prison's medical unit, then airlifted to a trauma center, where he remains in critical but stable condition. The 3 suspects have since been placed in solitary confinement while investigators try to understand how such weapons managed to pass through security inside one of the country's most heavily guarded facilities. To understand why Lola became a target in the first place, you have to look at the shadow system that exists within South African prisons. Behind the official structure of guards and administrators lies an inmate-controlled hierarchy, where respect is earned through violence and loyalty is enforced through fear. The infamous numbers gang, made up of the 20s, 27s, and 28s, controls everything from contraband trafficking to deciding who lives and who dies inside the prison walls. Each number has its own role. The 20s focus on acquiring wealth. The 27s enforce discipline through violence. And the 28s control the sex trade while maintaining secret traditions passed down for generations. This gang structure is centuries old, complete with rituals, ranks, and an internal justice system that is more complex than those of some entire countries. New inmates are quickly evaluated and given a brutal choice. Join a number, affiliate loosely, or risk becoming prey inside the system. Al's criminal empire was never built on petty theft or small-time street crime. His fortune came from bold, carefully planned attacks on South Africa's cash-in-transit industry, a sector that moves billions of rand every year. He recruited his crews with the precision of a corporate executive, bringing in former military operatives, disgruntled security officers, and technical experts capable of disabling GPS tracking and communication systems. His operations followed a clear signature pattern. Careful route surveillance, bribery of key insiders, and then overwhelming force carried out with military-style precision. One infamous operation involved striking 3 armored vehicles across Gauteng province within just 30 minutes, completely overwhelming and paralyzing the police response. Al didn't just steal money. He exposed how vulnerable the entire security system really was. But success always creates enemies. Every rand stolen belonged to someone, and someone always wanted revenge. Rival syndicates, security staff who lost their jobs, angry police officers, and gang leaders whose territories were threatened all had reasons to want him eliminated. When he was finally arrested during a failed operation, he entered prison as a marked man, carrying debts, grudges, and unresolved conflicts that followed him through the gates like shadows. The heist that ultimately led to his capture was a planned 12 million rand operation in the Northwest Province, executed with a team of 8 specialists. The plan itself was nearly flawless, but betrayal changed everything. Table May, a trusted associate who turned informant, tipped off authorities, ensuring police were already waiting when the team moved in. Inside prison, survival depends less on physical strength and more on understanding social hierarchies. High-profile inmates like Lola are immediately analyzed. Are they useful assets, dangerous threats, or disposable liabilities? The 20s might view him as a valuable resource because of his outside connections and wealth. The 27s might see him as either a potential enforcer or a future rival. The 28s focus on whether he can be controlled. Unaffiliated inmates see him simply as a famous criminal whose downfall is only a matter of time. One wrong conversation, one misplaced alliance, or one misunderstood threat can be deadly. The numbers gang operates as the true government inside prison, with its code passed down orally over generations. The 27s serve as enforcers, carrying out violent acts that permanently bind members to the group. Leadership is determined by seniority, brutality, and political intelligence, often surpassing the authority of the actual correctional officers. Matlala's presence inside this world disrupted the balance. High-profile prisoners attract attention, and for L that meant constant judgment, strategic alliances, and careful maneuvering. The wrong gesture, the wrong association, or ignoring gang authority could instantly trigger violent consequences. The attack last night may have been ordered by gang leaders, rival factions, or even people connected to his victims outside prison. The motives overlap. Money, power, revenge, and internal politics all intersect in prison violence. South African prisons have repeatedly failed to stop such attacks. Violence levels are nearly 4 times higher than in similar facilities in developed countries, and weapons circulate with alarming ease. Inmates manufacture deadly tools from bed frames, plastic, and everyday objects, often with the help, silence, or negligence of corrupt staff. Low salaries, intimidation, and bribes create an environment where guards frequently look the other way. The weapons used against L were most likely crafted over several weeks, passed through multiple inmates, and carefully coordinated to ensure the attack succeeded. This kind of operation does not happen by accident. It reflects a system that has collapsed at a structural level, not a single moment of failure. Lawless's survival instincts were shaped over years of evading police and surviving repeated assassination attempts. From ambushed convoys to car bombs and corrupt law enforcement plots, he had spent his life navigating constant life-or-death situations with calculated precision. But prison presented a completely different kind of threat. An enclosed environment with no possibility of escape, where danger is always nearby and never fully visible. The psychological pressure becomes just as intense as the physical risk. Inmates develop extreme hypervigilance, sleeping only in short intervals and functioning in a permanent state of mental alert. Strategic thinking no longer revolves around planning heists, but around survival, where every conversation, every glance, and every alliance could carry fatal consequences. The motives behind Lawless's stabbing are complex and overlapping. The 20s may have resented his independence and his refusal to share wealth from outside connections. The 27s could have used him as a test subject for new recruits, proving loyalty through violence. Other criminal groups may have sought revenge for past operations. Corrupt officials might have feared that his potential cooperation with authorities could expose long-standing criminal networks. In South African prisons, violence often occurs when multiple interests align around the same target, allowing different groups to benefit from a single elimination. Legal and systemic issues are deeply tied to these dynamics. Al's legal team, funded by hidden millions, launched an aggressive strategy challenging the legality of his arrest, the credibility of informants, and the conditions of his imprisonment. Requests for protective custody were repeatedly denied, leaving him even more vulnerable. Failed reforms have made the situation worse. Promises of body scanners, AI surveillance, and higher salaries for guards were announced but never properly implemented, leaving major weaknesses unaddressed. Corruption, negligence, and deliberate inaction have turned prisons into parallel economies where protection and privileges can be bought, completely undermining security. The consequences of last night's attack will spread far beyond the prison walls. If Al survives, he faces a brutal choice between cooperating with authorities or staying silent, with both options putting his life and possibly his family at risk. His survival could give his legal team leverage to expose systemic failures and challenge detention conditions. If he dies, investigations may uncover deep corruption, but history suggests that real reform may never follow. The three suspects now face potential murder charges, yet gang protection could shield them if they were acting under orders. This incident raises fundamental questions. Who truly controls the prisons? Whose interests are really being protected? And whether a society can accept correctional systems that function more like execution chambers for inconvenient inmates. This is not just a South African problem. Across Africa, similar conditions exist. Kenya's overcrowded prisons generate constant violence. Nigeria's facilities reflect structures similar to the numbers gangs. Zimbabwe's underfunded prisons depend on bribes for even basic survival. The pattern is always the same: chronic underfunding, corruption, overcrowding, and political neglect. These factors normalize violence, making shocking events like Lola's stabbing tragically predictable. Right now, Matlala lies in a hospital bed under armed guard, critically injured but still alive. His fate will decide whether this becomes just another forgotten statistic or a moment that sparks real change. Investigations will likely follow the usual pattern: early promises, scapegoats, and then silence. But Lola's case has already forced the public to confront uncomfortable truths about prison governance, corruption, and the silent complicity that allows violence to flourish. The coming days will show whether authorities treat this as a genuine wake-up call or simply manage public attention until the story fades away.